Hey guys, this is Sam with sneakinshow.com. I have a bit of a weird one for you this week. Uh, in the previous weeks, I've been playing a lot of standard, but the standard season's over, so we get to play what we want for a little while, which really is limited, but because I'm just starting out this format, I don't think there's that much I can offer anyone right now until I get a little bit more experience in it. So we have Pauper this week. Hooray, Pauper. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to really enjoy this format. A lot of people who play a lot of paper magic instead of online magic really haven't seen that much of it. It's an online only format, ostensibly anyway. I think that there is the potential that it might take off in paper at some stage because it is super, super sweet and pretty cheap to get it into. But anyway, let's get on to the deck. What we've got here is we've got a mono black devotion deck. So it does seem like standard. Mainly we're in mono black because the mana sucks. Mana is terrible in this format. When you get commons, you get really powerful effects for a lot of cards, but you still get really crappy mana. So this is what we have for now. The main reason that we're trying to leverage it is Grey Merchant, and also this new badass motherfucker, Marsh Mist Titan. I don't know if any of you have read this, but it's basically Affinity, and that's pretty sweet. It's a big body, which is not really something that Black gets that often in the common slot. I know there's a lot of big mythics and a lot of big rares, but at common, Black tends to be a fairly stat loose color. So yeah, well, as soon as I saw this guy, I'm like, yeah, I know where you're going. You're going into my mono black pauper deck, and here we are to try it out. Um, so this is a little bit different to most mono black pauper decks. It is an archetype that gets around a lot, but I tend to do it a bit differently to everyone else. The greatest hits of the format. Sorry, of the archetype, things like Obligate, which is basically Journey to Nowhere. It's got a lot of text. You don't really need to bother reading it because it doesn't actually work properly on Magic Online, and basically just is Journey to Nowhere with a double black in its cost. Quambaj Witches, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I imagine not, but basically it's a pinger that allows your opponent to ping as well. Again, a lot of text. A lot of the cards in Pauper do have some overly complicated text because they're from back in the day when uh, Wizards didn't believe in simplified cards at common level. But anyway, this thing's pretty good. It's pretty oppressive against anything which is has a lot of X1s in it. It does inform a lot of our choices. We don't play Liliana Spectre in this deck, which I used to because it dies to this, and I think it's a lot better playing Witches than Spectre. Chittering Rats, most people play with this card at some point. It's really oppressive. It is always better than it seems. Carrion Feeder, a legacy playable one drop, which happens to be a common. It's our sack outlet. Can't block, but that's rarely relevant. It's extremely good with the engine of the deck, which is Tortured Existence. I recommend that everyone has a chance to read this and have a think about what it does. Basically, it is survival of the fittest, except uses your graveyard instead of your library. Um, I know that doesn't make a lot of sense until you read it, but you exchange cards in your hand for cards in your graveyard, and for one black. This thing's really efficient, a really busted effect, and I can't believe it's common. I really can't. I know it's, from back in the day, but yeah. Anyway, this plus the sack outlet plus my favorite card in the world, Stinkweed Imp, are the draw engine in this deck. Basically, Stinkweed Imp can ensure that you always draw a creature. Once it dies and it's in the bin, you can continue to draw it every turn, discard it to Tortured Existence, and get another creature back out. A lot of the time, that's going to be Grey Merchanting people 2 or 3 times, if that's your option, because that'll kill almost anyone. But there are other games where you just get a Chittering Rats back every turn because you know the only card in their hand is irrelevant and they can't cast it. And that basically permanently locks them out of the game while you just ping them for 2 damage a turn and draw cards, which is sweet, and try and find your Grey Merchants. We have the full complement of Signing Blood, because drawing cards is sweet, and 2 damage is a very cheap price to pay in order to do that. And I think the only card I haven't mentioned is the one of Fume Spitter. Fume Spitter it's okay. It's basically a function of having a tutor package, which is the Dredge plus Tortured Existence package, and being able to get this back every turn when you need that effect is really good against some of the aggro white decks. It's not a card that I'm in love with playing, but it has proven itself good enough to make its way back into the main deck as a one of. The meta base is, as previously mentioned, fairly simple. It's 21 swamps, and then 3 Barren Moor, which is a cycling swamp. Um, the amount of cycling lands is negligible. I could probably play the fourth if I wanted to, but I feel like three is enough, and any more risk is all downside to me. The sideboard. So we've got a package of removal. I think you guys can imagine that this comes in fairly often uh, against the decks that it's required to come in against. 3 Sorin's Thirst. Um, the second version of Freaker's Cure. I can't remember the name of the first, but it's the third time it's been printed in the one that's in standard right now. Basically, it deals 2 damage, you gain 2 life. Nice and easy. Good against aggro decks. Doomblade, Victim of Night, mix these up where you want. Basically, they come in against decks where you need to kill big dudes, or just kill dudes at all. Tendrils of Corruption's in that same slot. Gains you a bunch of life, which is really good. I only like the one of because having 2 in your hand is pretty much the worst thing ever. I just feel like punching myself in the face for being such an idiot when I have 2 in the deck. So I keep it to 1. I'm always happy to have 1 and never happy having 2. So yeah. 2, Read the Bones. So Read the Bones, obviously a fairly recent print. It's something I'm still trying out. I think it's, strictly better than Sign in Blood when you absolutely must have that card draw effect. So in the matches that Sign in Blood is really, really good, you would actually prefer Read the Bones, but Read the Bones is a lot worse when you don't want the effect. In that it costs you an extra mana and you take a more critical turn off to cast it. Taking turn 2 off isn't really that bad in this deck, but taking your third turn off, where you should be casting Stinkweed Imp, Obligate, and Chittering Rats, is a really big deal. So moving on, we have 3 Duresses. People have played this with this card before. You know what it does. It comes in when it's good. That's it. Order of the Ebon Hands, protection from white, can gain first strike, can pump. The reason this isn't in the main deck, because this is an extremely good card in long games, is because, again, of the witches. The witches happen to be slightly more relevant. A 1/3 body happens to be a little bit better than a 2/1 for this strategy because we are playing a very slow game plan. And the effect of killing 1/1s is really good, whereas this is good when it's relevant, but not always as relevant, so it gets to be the one that's in the side. When you bring these in, you're almost always taking these out, so they're never really in the same deck at the same time. Okay, so that's a deck tech. I'm going to go on to some matches now, and we can see how busted this little this dredge engine is, and have some fun. Hopefully, slam some early Marsh Mish Titans. Marshmish, some Marsh Mist Titans. I imagine I'll stuff that up a bunch over the course of this video, but there we go. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I am Sam Loy, and I'll see you in a second.